Starting. Okay, I will share my desktop. Nice inception. So I will introduce the Satellite 6 for those who don't have been ever in touch with it, but I will also try to provide information that might be helpful for people that were in touch with Satellite 5 or the previous versions of Catalog or with Foreman. The Satellite 6 is the Red Hat solution for provisioning, config management, and patch management. So what does it mean? It allows you to automate the provisioning of the systems, the configuration of it, and manage the content that the system get at the end. And by the content, we mainly mean the RPMs that the Red Hat or the third-party vendors or open source communities provide. So I will go through the workflow as it goes when you install the SAT6 on your infrastructure. So here, one instance that I've already prepared a bit. So the first thing to note is that the Satellite 6 is built around the organizations, so you can't do that much without having an organization defined. There is one organization preceded, and I will create a new one just to go through the whole cycle. So when you log into the satellite, you can go to the left corner and manage organizations. So I will create a new one called demo and after it's created, I first want to attach my subscriptions that I have from the Red Hat so that I can consume it from the satellite. So satellite provides some kind of proxy or delegates the portal features. So instead of you installing then the software from the portal, from the CDN of the Red Hat, you install it from your local instance, and the Satellite 6 is the local instance for you. So when you log into the customer portal and you have subscriptions assigned, you go to the subscription management applications, and you can manage more satellites or instances, and you can distribute what number of subscriptions you want to have available in which instances. So the subscription is basically a unit for distributing the Red Hat software to you. So I can create new subscription management application. So every organization in your Satellite 6 basically needs a new organization here. I will choose satellite, and I have Satellite 6 here. So the second step I need to do is to attach subscriptions to this application. So I will click attach subscriptions. I have my employee subscription here. So I just say that I want 5 instances of the employee subscription, which involves the RHEL server subscription. So I will attach them. It's a asynchronous task, so it takes a bit, or it takes a while. I did something that maybe I haven't checked the checkbox. Yeah, now says that it's attaching the subscriptions there. And also you can ask whenever you want, and you have something that you don't understand. Okay, so now the 5 employee subscriptions were attached to this application, and I can download the manifest to upload it back to my organization satellite. So I will just download that, and in the satellite I go to the demo organization, and in the Red Hat subscriptions I need to choose the file for the manifest. So it was here. So what I do is taking the expertise subscriptions from the portal and uploading it here, so then I can subscribe my systems against the satellite and have the getting the updates for the systems. So that takes a while, but at the end you see that the file imported successfully. The next step is to enable the repositories that are provided as part of the manifest. So I go to the Red Hat repositories, and I will see all the repositories that I am entitled to access from the Red Hat. So we'll go and try to provision RHEL 7 from this SAT instance. So I will go to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux server and enable Kickstart repositories. These repositories don't include any errata, so they are just vanilla releases of the RHEL, and they are intended to be used for the Kickstart installation, so that they are published via HTTP and consumable by Anaconda. So the 7 server means that I want the latest version, so when the 7.1 will be released, the 7 server will automatically point to the 7.1. Or you can just choose you want a 7.0 and stay on this release and manage. You will be the one that manages when you switch to the next release. So I want the Kickstart one, and I also want just the RPMs. These are the base OS that get updates, get errata. So I will enable these two, and after they are enabled, I can synchronize them. So these are all the available repositories. Then I can go to products, and in products there are the products and repositories that I've allowed. So in this product, I will have the 2 repositories, the Kickstart one and RPM. So I will sync both of them. You see that, and it starts syncing. You can see after it loads that this will be published via HTTP because it's the Kickstart repository. And I will do the same for the second repository. So what now happens is getting all the RPMs that are available on the CDN for the Red Hat repository and storing it on your Satellite 6 instance using PAL as the backend service for storing it. When I go to the details of the second repository, you see that it's not published via HTTP, so just HTTPS. Another thing that Satellite 6 comes by default is the lifecycle management, which means that it allows you to define lifecycle environments which represents the life cycle of the system from preparing it and making sure that all versions that you involve in the system, both the operating system packages as well as your application software, works correctly and is tuned to work properly. So usually the example is having the chain of dev, test, and production environment where you get the content from one environment to another by means of promotions. So I would just here define the path that represents this case. And at the end, there is the production. And so by default, or when you sync the repository, it always goes to the library lifecycle environment. And if you want it, and if you didn't want the the advanced lifecycle management, and you want to use it just as the proxy for the repositories, you can just subscribe to the library and get directly just the content that gets synced. We can check if the synchronization went well or not, or if we should switch to another task first before it gets ready. It can, or it might take a while to sync the repositories, as there are many packages. On the other hand, since we are syncing the Rails 7, the repository with the updates is not that huge, but I have a backup plan here. So this is how you would get to the state that you get the content from the Red Hat and you have it in your Satellite 6 instance. What you can also do is to create your own repositories or sync your own packages. So I can demonstrate it here by creating I will call it Sat6 product that I will not use the manifest to get it in, but I will define the path to the repositories by my own. And what I want is the client tools for the Satellite 6 that I will use when provisioning the system. So I've created the product, and then when I create a repository, I can say repository. I will find it. I will get there from here. So the development at least. So in the edge command, this is the repository that contains the Rails 6. So I will not do this same mistake again. And I want the tools for the Rails 7. So I'll copy the repository here, and you could do this for any repository that's available through the HTTP, and you can sync it. So it might be Fedora, it might be.
What is this repo for?
It contains the tools for the client tools for the Satellite 6. So it includes the Puppet and Cattle Agent.
Beta channel for Rails 7 now? Is there something else that's missing?
There is at least Cattle Agent that wouldn't be distributed this way. So, and again, I can use the same workflow here. So I will sync it, and it should get, this one should be much faster, as there are only about 50 packages. So we might want to wait, if we want. So in the meantime, I can check if was the progress of the synchronization of the second repositories, and it's not that fast. So I will switch to the second organization that I've played before and explain or continue from there, as basically this is exactly what I did in the second organization. So in the second organization, I've already synchronized the repositories, and I could either consume it directly or I can use the content view mechanism to have more control over what the systems really get when they consume the content from the satellite. So with the content view, you basically define what repositories and what versions of packages will the system see, and it provides the ability to snapshot or creating the snapshots or version the views. So every change in the content view and the change that the system will consume at the end is tracked. So you need to define what repositories will be available in this content view. So I will choose the Kickstart repository and the Rel 7 client tools and add it to this content view. It still wouldn't mean that these repositories are in, because you need to publish the new version that contains these repositories. So I will publish the new version. And what happens is it takes the repositories from the library and creates a snapshot of these repositories in this version. So even though you synchronize the repositories from the upstream or from the Red Hat, this version wouldn't change till you publish the new version. So actually this version won't change ever again. So you can see that it's not that slow to create a snapshot of the rel repository. Once it's finished, we will also use a promotion, which is the way how to get the version available in the second environment. Okay, so once it's published, I can promote it, and the rules for the lifecycle environment said that I can't go to the test environment without going through the dev first, and the same for the production. So I will now promote this version. Ideally, you would have some CI connected. I don't mean to the library probably, but to the dev or the test, and you could automate this process. So once this, let's say in dev, once the CI goes green, you would promote this to the test to perform additional checks. But you don't want, if the CI goes red, you probably don't want to spend or waste your test department time on having builds that don't install at all or something like that. So again, I'm promoting the second environment, and if I publish a new version in library, it wouldn't touch the dev environment. The only way how to change the dev environment would be, again, through the promote. you can also see the history, what I did in this content view environment. So you can see that I published a new version and I promoted this version to that environment. Okay, so I have now the content ready that I'm able to consume, and we'll go to the second feature of the Satellite 6, and it's the provisioning. So I will use this content to provision a host on it. So Satellite 6 is built on top of the foreman, so it has all the features that foreman include. So before I can fully use it, for the provisioning, I need to do a few steps in regards to the organizations. So by default, Satellite 6 ships a set of provisioning templates that are used for generating the Kickstart files and set up the Pixie boot and so on. And by default, in your organization, you don't have that available. So what you need to do is either create a new template or go to any organization, find let's say if you want the Pixie you will need to find it in the preceded ones in any organization. Kickstart default Pixie Linux is the one, or you can define your own. So you will basically go copy this one and create the new one in your organization. We are addressing that, and in upstream there are already changes that will make this better.
An association or organization?
No, unfortunately, this is not exposed in
it is in the PR.
Yes. So we consider this being a bug, but we need to deal with it with this version. So you specify basically the templates are ERB files that the foreman evaluates and pushes them to the systems that use it. So this is the Pixie Linux one. I can search for the Kickstart templates as well. So these are the ones recommended. So you can see, if you are familiar with ERB, that you have a bunch of Ruby code here, and it's interpolated with a string. So if you want to put something dynamic here, like the media path for the Kickstart tree for the Kickstart, then you put it here, and the foreman knows how to fill in the variable. I can maybe make it a bit bigger. So you can also use things like snippets. So instead of having everything defined in one huge Kickstart file, you say, I want to use the snippet, and you can then use the snippets across many templates. So, for example, here is a snippet for registering using the subscription manager, and then when you search for snippet, should we go for this one? I can see all the snippets that are in the system, and there is a subscription manager registration, which is just another ERB file that gets put into the host, into the template. You can see that we are using some parameters on the host to update or to generate this template. Okay, so this is how the templates work, one thing that you need to be careful is for the templates that you want to use for provisioning, you need to make sure that these templates are associated to the operating system that you want to use it with. So this can be a bit tricky. So, for example, for the Kickstart in the association, I need to make sure that the operating system RHEL7 is checked here in. This operating system was imported while we synchronized the Kickstart repo. So the setting of the provisioning, we need to set a bunch of details to be able to do that. So the first thing is in the operating system, we specify which partition table, this is another template that we use, which installation media we want to use. This is the one imported from when syncing the repo, and this all gets pre-filled when syncing the repository. And we need to choose the provision and PXE Linux template. They are blank by default. I've already did this, so you would need to do this too, to basically say that when I provision RHEL7, I want this provisioning template and this PXE Linux template to be used. There is a mechanism how to then update, or make it more dynamic based on if your server is the web server or database or whatever role in your infrastructure. These are the defaults when nothing else is specified. So this is for the operating system, and then you need an infrastructure for the provisioning. So foreman is able to provision on bare metal, and in fact you don't need or shouldn't need any additional piece of infrastructure to be able to provision, and every additional piece is just to make it more comfortable or add some additional feature that you want to use. So these additional features are shipped as part of the smart proxy or the capsule, if you like. So the capsule provides the APIs for your infrastructure pieces that the foreman is able to control. So here I've installed a capsule that controls the TFTP, DNS, and the DHCP server, as well as Puppet and Puppet Master and Puppet CA. So what it means that when I provision system and I use this capsule, it will be able to set the PXE boot basically to do unattended installation and serve the Kickstart there. It reserves the IP address for the system that you want to provision. It sets the record in DNS for this IP address and the name of the host, and it controls or says what Puppet modules will be installed on the host, as well as if the host that you provision will be trusted when asking for the certificate. So you can have, this. I have the smart proxy or the capsule installed on the very same system as the Satellite 6. You could have one proxy for your, let's say, network services, or if your DNS server and DHCP were on the separate services, you can have, multiple proxies or capsules, and the same for the Puppet and Puppet CA. Then you need a couple of other things before you can provision, and if you want to provision, the full stack with the DNS and DHCP control, you need to specify the domain. So here's Qatar Labs domain name, where I say which proxy controls this DNS, and the same applies for the subnets. So in the subnet, I have here the virtual network for my libvirt, and you can see which domain it applies to or belongs to, and the proxies that control the DHCP, TFTP, and DNS on this subnet. So later on, we will see that when we choose the subnet, this proxy will be used to do the DNS and DHCP orchestration. Okay, so once we have this set up, we can define a host group, which is, you can understand it as a template for the host that predefines a bunch of stuff. So I have a few host groups here already, and I will create another one which will do probably just the same. So I will now call it core, and I choose which lifecycle environment I want this host group defined in. So I will choose library this time. I will use the core, if I remember how was my naming convention. And better change that. Yeah, so I will use the RHEL7 core. I don't have to choose these. The content source means when I install a capsule that is able to distribute the content, then I will choose from this select box to use the capsule instead of installing the content directly from the satellite 6. So it allows you, to distribute the load for installing the packages. I can also select the Puppet and Puppet Master, Puppet CA and Puppet Master that I will use when configuring the system. I will just pre-select the defaults. So to use, this is the installation media that was synced as part of syncing the content in SAT6, and I will do this programming template with some sort. And another thing that we need to do for making the installation easier is to create an activation key. So the idea is we don't want to have our credentials for satellite 6 when registering the system available in the template, and we want to delegate this information as well as additional information to one piece of data, which is called activation key. So when I go to activation keys, I've created some already, so I will call this RHEL7. I want it to register the system into library environment and to assign the RHEL7 core content view that I've just created. So then I can specify what products should be subscribed the system to when registering with this activation key. Activation key itself registers the system to the satellite 6, but it doesn't subscribe to any product, and you can add additional subscriptions just through the UI or through the API or the CLI tool. It always should work the same. So I want the employee subscription for the rel, and then I want the SAT6, which contains the client tools that I want to consume. So add selected. So I would try to provision with this, and then I would probably make a short break just to have some air. So I created the activation key. Now I need to reload the data, and you can see that this is the activation key, the rel7 core that I've created, so it gets auto-completed. You could have more activation keys used if you want it. So what I did, prepared a host group for the content view I've created, assign Puppet CA and Puppet Master there, choose the network that I want to provision to, specify the operating system parameters that will be used for the kickstarting, and choose the activation key. So I will now switch to provisioning. I will probably explain some details after the break, but for now I will just go and create a new host. So I will call it rel7 core. I want the rel7 core that I've created. I will, and you can see that once I've chosen the host group, all the predefined values that I did in the host group got applied to the host. And one thing that it didn't do was specifying where I want to deploy on. So bare metal means that I would need to specify the MAC address of the host to be able to identify the host with the metadata, or I have set up a compute resource which is able to provision the system and set this data for you. So when I choose libvirt, it will actually do the calls to libvirt to provision or to create the host, and then do the unattended installation for me. So in the network, you can see that it already did the call to the smart proxy to reserve a DHCP or the IP address from the DHCP. In the operating system, you can see that it got applied, and I need to specify the parameters of the virtual machine that I will create. I've learned today that 768 megabytes might not be enough for rel7 to install, at least in the default or with our kickstart. So I will choose 1 gigabyte for sure, to make sure it will go. I will use the virtual network that I've defined in my infrastructure, and this is the network that I run my DHCP and DNS and TFTP that I control with the smart proxy. And this we can leave this as by default. You can see here we got a bunch of parameters here that got here from selecting the activation key and the content view and so on. So these variables are used by the substation manager snippet to subscribe you or subscribe the system to the satellite 6 after it's provisioned. So now, if we are lucky, and I think it should work properly, it creates the records. It was quite fast, and at the end, we can go to the console and see the system being provisioned. So I would do some break here. There's some way to pause this one.
To mute it.